I was seeing you in person. Really, I do. I really wish I could have joined you this year at your convention down there in Australia. As you may know, I love you guys and I love going down there. You have a beautiful part of the world that it's always a thrill for me to go down there and see you all. And you're such lovely people, always make me feel so welcome. So I'm very happy to be here tonight to share a bit of my knowledge and my experience with Pycnogenol and about joint health. I am trained as a naturopathic physician from Bastyr University in the United States. And so that's kind of my background, but I've been working with Pycnogenol on different research projects as their scientific director for Horphag Research for about 20 years now. Time goes fast. Yes, but so tonight we have a bit of a special treat. It's a focused conversation on the benefits of Pycnogenol related to joint health. And I'll go a little bit beyond just joint health and talk about, of course, the importance of keeping active and exercise and how Pycnogenol can help you to do that later on in the presentation. But yeah, the main point is to be able to keep that spring in your step, no matter what life throws at you, what age you may be. The important thing is to keep moving. And Pycnogenol definitely has a lot of benefits that help me personally keep moving, but can help you as well. So let's get into it. Of course, we have to have the regular disclaimers to begin with that, Market Australia does not necessarily support or they have not prepared this presentation at all. This is prepared by myself based upon the research that is openly published and available in medical databases online. So you will find all the references for the papers in the presentation at the bottom of the slides. But to begin with, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, Pycnogenol is a natural extract that comes from a unique species of pine tree that grows only in the southwest corner of France. It's called the French maritime pine tree. And it's 100% pure, made in France ingredients. So you can bank on that one. Pycnogenol was the first pine bark extract that was originally developed in the late 1960s as a pharmaceutical product. It was originally used as a drug exclusively for about 20 years until the regulations changed, and because of the excellent safety record of Pycnogenol and the fact that it is a natural plant-derived extract, since the 1980s, it's been allowed to be used as a health food ingredient. So that's why you're fortunate enough to have it in products such as your Isotonix OPC-3 product and other health food products as well. But it's a phenomenal ingredient, and it's still very, very powerful and effective, and still marketed and sold as a pharmaceutical product in 7 countries in the world. So that's a bit of the history. But there are a lot of copycats, other different pine tree extracts and things like this that have come on the tails of the success of Pycnogenol. But just be aware that they do not have the same benefit as Pycnogenol. You can see that clearly when you compare the research head to head. You will find that Pycnogenol is much more effective at a lower dose. Yes, so I'll move on from that though. So Pycnogenol comes from this part of the world here. You can see on your screen, which is a forest in the southwest corner of France here. It was planted during the time of Napoleon III as a land reclaiming project. So interestingly enough, so this is not a natural forest, but it was planted by man. But that gives it the unique feature of this 2.5 million acres is completely pine trees. So it's a very interesting part of the world. Today, it's maintained by the French government, but in a completely natural way. There's no chemical fertilizers or pesticides that are used in the maintenance of the trees, and it's completely sustainable. So every year, the trees are allowed to grow for 30 to 50 years before harvesting. And then when the trees are cut, for every one tree that's cut, they have to plant 2 more in its place. So the cycle continues, the cycle of life in the forest. And you can see this if you ever have the opportunity to go to the region. So what's unique about this pine tree? Now, the maritime pine grows all over the world, but it really depends on the environment that it's grown in and the soil, the makeup, the nutrient makeup of the soil that it grows in as well, as to what compounds are created and build up in the bark. Now, the history behind the area where the Pycnogenol forest is it used to be a swamp that had a lot of seawater in it. So there's a very, very high, exceptionally high mineral content for hundreds of years in that area. And it's also an area of very harsh temperature differences between night and day, and they get about 300 days of sun a year. So it's quite a harsh environment for plants to grow in. So because of these environmental factors, the French maritime pine tree has become developed into kind of a unique subspecies of pine. And you can see that in the bark, how it's very wavy here, very thick. The average thickness of the French maritime pine tree bark grows to be about 4 centimeters. Whereas just a few hundred kilometers south in Spain, the maritime pine trees there, the average thickness is only about 2 centimeters. So there's a big difference even in that same region. So it is a unique species of tree. And you can see from the bark itself, it's very, very deep red in color. That shows that there's a high concentration of the polyphenol compounds that give Pycnogenol all the health benefits in the bark itself. And in the production of Pycnogenol, this is 1,000 times concentrated. So it becomes a very, very powerful plant extract. So since the late 1960s, Pycnogenol has been standardized to the procyanidin content, which are these unique polyphenol compounds you can see over here. But it's a natural plant extract. So it actually has many different active ingredients, including many different forms of organic acids that are very quickly absorbed and have a fast action in the body. And it's still today produced to pharmaceutical standards. So if you're interested in the research, or if you have difficulty sleeping, I highly recommend you jump on pubmed.gov and type in Pycnogenol here. You will find there are more than 520 peer-reviewed research papers on Pycnogenol. Thank you for the laugh. I appreciate that, even though I can't hear it. Yes, but you will see many of these articles are free. So you can download them and challenge yourself and read them. And I guarantee you, if you're having trouble sleeping, this is the answer. Yes, works every time for me. But Pycnogenol, as far as the efficacy and the health benefits, it's really, really research-based. I mean, with a pharmaceutical background, of course, you would expect this. But the research continues even today. More than $1 million invested in research every year on Pycnogenol to continue to prove the safety and the efficacy of Pycnogenol. Now, originally developed for heart health and circulatory function, in the last 40 years since it's been open to health food ingredients, the research has just expanded. And you can see in here joint, what we'll be talking about today. There are many publications related to joint health as well. But the basics of what you need to know for what Pycnogenol does is, as a natural plant extract with multiple active ingredients, it has multiple key functions. And one of the most important ones is its contribution to blood vessel health and maximizing blood flow, helping the blood vessels to function healthier and help them to dilate better, also helping other parameters of cardiovascular health, like balancing cholesterol levels, triglycerides, high blood pressure, all of these things. And this is proven in many different research papers. Beyond the blood flow aspects, it's also a superior antioxidant. As a natural plant extract, it's one of the most powerful antioxidants available on the market. It's also a potent anti-inflammatory. It blocks many different pathways of inflammation in the body and helps to relieve pain in conditions such as osteoarthritis, which we'll be talking about tonight. And then it also has another aspect in that it helps to improve blood sugar control. It does this by impacting the enzymes that break down the carbohydrates and slows down the absorption of sugars into the body. This is a natural function of many polyphenol compounds, and pycnogenol is exceptional at this. So how does this contribute to joint health? Well, all of this really does, maybe with the exception of blood sugar. It's a little bit on the fringe for joint health. But improving blood flow is very important for maintaining joint health, delivering proper nutrient supply, waste removal from the joints. The antioxidant and anti-inflammatory functions are absolutely key, because osteoarthritis is an inflammatory process. It's a chronic inflammatory process, and you have to put out the fire in the joint before you can rebuild, and pycnogenol helps to do that. So just to give you in more detail some of the research on pycnogenol in a one-page kind of word image graphic here. Pycnogenol contains many different polyphenols, and these procyanidins contribute through their antioxidant effect, to have many different anti-aging effects for immune function or cognitive function. The cardiovascular functions are exceptional, boosting nitric oxide, helping to improve the healthy function of the blood vessels, has profound impact. The anti-inflammatory actions, of course, joint health, which we'll be focusing on, but related to sports and muscle pain, but also menstrual health and also lung function too. There's a lot of data related to all of these. Remember, there's more than 50 years of clinical research on pycnogenol. So, I'm not just pulling things out of my wherever you want to say. This is all research-based. So moving on to skin, pycnogenol enhances collagen production, and as well as hyaluronic acid production. While this is important for skin, there is also a strong connection between collagen and hyaluronic acid in joint health. And so I'll touch on that as well. But also related to sun, protecting your skin from sun damage, and also having a potent whitening effect. And then lastly, the healthy blood sugar. It helps to improve metabolic function. It helps to prevent diabetes or metabolic syndrome, improve the health of the kidneys and the eyes too. So this is a lot. And where can you find this information? And where can you find this information specifically about the joint health information that I'll be focusing on tonight? Well, I'd love to introduce you to pycnogenol.com. If you haven't already seen it before, I definitely recommend you take a visit. And if you go to the Science tab here, and you scroll down on the Science tab, you will come to what are known as the application brochures. And these application brochures, there are 13 different brochures of different health categories and body systems. And you will find right in the top line is the brochure related to joint health. And these are updated very regularly. So this has almost all of the current joint health research, with some exceptions, which I'll cover tonight. So again, we'll start with the antioxidant, anti-inflammatory actions and how these are important in maintaining joint health. So free radical stress is something that we live with as human beings because we require oxygen. Every time you take a breath, you're increasing oxygen into your bloodstream. And therefore, congratulations, you just formed a new free radical just by breathing. So it's very important to have potent antioxidant defenses in the body. And we do in our bodies naturally until about the age of 25, when our antioxidant enzymes and antioxidants in our body begin to decline a little bit with age. And so you can see a buildup of free radical damage, and this can be increased depending on the type of lifestyle that you live or how polluted the environment is that you live in. And as these free radicals and damage from them increases in the body, this significantly increases the risk of many different health conditions, including accelerating aging itself. And this will impact joint health too, as well. If you have high levels of free radical stress, this means you have higher inflammation in the body, which will make your joints hurt more. So it's important to, as your first line of defense, is to lower free radical stress in the body. And I could spend hours just talking about the research on pycnogenol as an antioxidant. But just to give you an excellent summary in one study here, this was a study conducted in healthy individuals. Now, they were smokers, and so because they smoke cigarettes, they had higher levels of free radical stress than a healthy non-smoker. They divided the group into a placebo, so a dummy sugar pill, and pycnogenol at 50 milligrams per day. And then they tested them both, and they followed them for 10 weeks. And they showed that after 10 weeks of consumption, the people taking pycnogenol, now they're still smoking, but just by adding 50 milligrams of pycnogenol, the amount of free radicals in their bloodstream decreased by 40%. Now that's very significant. Don't get me wrong, this is not an excuse to smoke. Best is not to smoke, but if you must, please take pycnogenol. But it is a vicious cycle because free radical stress leads to inflammation. And part of inflammation is the increase in the production of more free radicals, which in turn creates more inflammation and so on. And as this process goes on and accelerates as we age, this causes many of the phenomena we see with aging. So the kind of brain fog, the excessive fatigue in the morning, even affecting mood. This high levels of free radical stress can affect mood as well. So it's very important to get a good handle on this vicious cycle, and pycnogenol can help to break this through its powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory actions. But for joint health, you'll be happy to know that there are now to date 5 clinical studies. These are all well-designed, controlled clinical studies that show that pycnogenol has excellent benefits in helping to improve joint function and reduce pain. Now, let's talk about the joint itself, particularly the knee, because this is the most common joint for osteoarthritis. Now, a healthy knee joint, but basically any major joint in the body, looks like this. You have the bones on each side with a cartilage cushion in between both sides of the bones. It's important to note that there are no blood vessels or nerves or lymphatic vessels going through the joint, because this is an area of heavy friction and this would be easily susceptible to damage. So there are no nerves or blood vessels in there. And then, of course, so one of the questions with a lot of treatments for joint health products is, are the active ingredients actually reaching inside of the joint and having an impact inside the joint directly on this cartilage to help stop inflammation here or to help rebuild the cartilage? And you'll be happy to know, spoiler alert, pycnogenol does do this. And we have very groundbreaking information, very astounding research that was done in Germany that proved this. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But let's look at how the process happens. So if you have damage to the joint, this could be regular wear and tear with age too. The joint, the chondrocytes, these cartilage cells in the joint, get inflamed. And this inflammation process attracts immune cells, and they secrete immune-related, inflammation-related enzymes, such as MMP enzymes, as they're called, and other enzymes, and also prostaglandins, which increase inflammation in the joint and cause pain. And as this process continues and more inflammation causes more free radicals, which calls in more immune cells, and the process continues. And it really is a chronic situation that is difficult to get a handle on. Now, related to joint health, there are actually more than 9 publications available now, but there are many publications that show how pycnogenol works as an anti-inflammatory to decrease inflammation in the joint and fight pain, particularly its action on the inflammatory enzymes COX-2 and 5-LOX, lowering full body inflammation, which is indicated by CRP, and just improving the function of the joints in general. And because it also helps to decrease pain, you can decrease the need for medication, which is very important because long-term over-the-counter pain medication use is very hard on the kidneys and the liver especially. So just looking at 3 different controlled clinical studies, these were all done in patients with osteoarthritis. and they were compared to placebo. But giving pycnogenol to them over the course of 3 months resulted in an average decrease in pain of nearly 50%, an improvement in joint function over 50%, as well as decrease of many markers of inflammation, again, these inflammatory enzymes, and free radical stress. And the details of this can be found at pycnogenol.com in the joint health application brochure. Oops. Did I lose you? Oh, sorry. I got triggered off there. Let's go back here. Okay. Here we go. So in addition to decreasing free radical stress and inflammation, I mentioned earlier that pycnogenol increases collagen production, as well as hyaluronic acid production. And this was actually done in a study of healthy volunteers that showed that continuous intake of pycnogenol over the course of 3 months significantly increased the genetic expression of collagen, as well as the genetic expression of hyaluronic acid synthase, which is the enzyme that produces hyaluronic acid. What does that mean? It means better collagen production naturally, better hyaluronic acid production, which provides the cushioning in your joints. So not only does pycnogenol stop the inflammation, but it also helps to rebuild the joint. So this is very important. The process is simple. When you have osteoarthritis, this is like a house on fire. You got a fire going on here that you have to put out before you can rebuild. And that's where the antioxidant, anti-inflammatory action of pycnogenol works to decrease the inflammation first. You have to stop the fire. And then after that, the action of pycnogenol boosting cartilage and hyaluronic acid helps to rebuild the damage to the joint. Now, don't get me wrong, this takes time because it takes many years to develop this level of damage. So if you start taking pycnogenol today, a week later, you're not going to be here. It's going to take a little bit longer time, but this has definitely been seen. So there is hope. So how do we see this? Well, this has been studied in many studies with pycnogenol, and the studies have looked at different enzymes. Now, this is focusing on MMP13, which is, it's a proteinase enzyme. That means it breaks down proteins. And what are the proteins in the joint? This is your cartilage. Now, these are inflammatory enzymes. They're designed to break down proteins to allow immune cells to go into the joint and, attack the bacteria or virus that's supposed to be there. But in the case of osteoarthritis, there's usually no bacteria in there. So this develops into a chronic situation. And MMP13 is particularly expressed in osteoarthritis. And it's important to note that there's currently no safe pharmaceutical treatments that have been developed. There are many drug companies who are targeting these inflammatory enzymes for osteoarthritis treatments. But to date, there is none that has been safe enough to be put on the market. There are other enzymes involved too, like ones with great names like this one here, ADAMTS5. And ADAMTS5 specifically focuses on another protein in your joint called aggrecan. And this is another, what they call extracellular matrix. These provide extra resistance in the joints. And with osteoarthritis, this enzyme also increases and breaks down the joint. So pycnogenol, as I will show you now, inhibits both of these. And this was a very, very cool study. This is like cutting edge stuff, particularly for a health food ingredient. So with pycnogenol, we had many studies that already showed it relieved joint pain, it improved joint function. But there was the question, do the active compounds of pycnogenol reach inside the joint? And are they having a direct effect inside the joint? So this study took years to conduct, but they assembled a group of patients with severe osteoarthritis who were already planning to do a complete knee replacement surgery. Then for 3 weeks before the surgery, they gave them a higher dose of pycnogenol of 200 milligrams per day. Then when they did the surgery, the surgeons took out the bad knee and they gave the knee, the whole knee, to the researchers. Then the researchers, they took samples directly from the knee itself. They got samples of the joint fluid and they got samples of the cartilage tissue itself. At the same time, they also got blood samples from the subjects too, to look at the compounds in the blood. And it was very exciting to see. Let's see, I can't see my full screen. Sorry, give me a little technical difficulty here. All right. So what was exciting to see with it was that the cartilage eating enzymes such as the MMP13 inside of the synovial fluid, so this is actually inside of the joint, decreased significantly compared to the control group. So this was decreased by 25%, and this was with only taking pycnogenol for 3 weeks. Then they also saw a significant impact on the other enzyme, ADAMTS5, with a very significant decrease in the amount of ADAMTS5 here inside of the joint. Oh, I'm sorry, this is inside of the blood. So inside of the blood, the amount of pycnogenol, or the amount of ADAMTS5 and MMP13 also decreased significantly. And then also looking inside of the synovial fluid, they found another interesting aspect, and that was that there was signs of increased growth factors. And in the case of the joint tissue here, this is leptin and a compound known as IGF-5. This is insulin-like growth factor, or 1, I'm sorry, not 5, 1. And both of these contribute to accelerating the growth of the cartilage inside of the joint. So it was very exciting to see that taking pycnogenol significantly increased the amount of these growth factors inside the joint compared to control. That stimulates faster joint repair. Then they took it one step further, and they took the cartilage cells that they took directly from the joints of the subjects, and they tested them with plasma from the blood of the volunteers, as well as with synovial fluid from the blood, from the joints of the volunteers. And they grew these cartilage cells in culture with the blood from the volunteers or the synovial fluid from the volunteers. Now, why would they do this? They do this because both the blood and the synovial fluid contains the metabolites and the active compounds from pycnogenol. And so they wanted to test that even in that amount, would this be enough to have a significant anti-inflammatory effect? And what they found was that, really quite surprisingly, it did. It was very cool to see that even looking at synovial fluid. Now, again, remember, there are no blood vessels inside of the joint, but the pycnogenol compounds were actively transported into the joint and had a significant effect at decreasing inflammation directly inside of the chondrocytes. So these are the cells that produce the cartilage in your joint. So this is showing a direct effect inside the joint, improving the health of the joint, decreasing inflammation, and helping to improve the regrowth of the cartilage in the joint. So essentially, this is what we're looking at. You see an inflamed joint here. But then if you're taking pycnogenol, the metabolites and the active compounds of pycnogenol have been shown to actively accumulate inside the synovial fluid inside of the joint. And so what does this do? This has a direct anti-inflammatory effect and helps to ease the inflammation inside the joint. And it helps to revitalize the function of the cartilage cells inside the joint and speed up the repair. And this has all been published. Here you can see, and you can see the different compounds from pycnogenol which actively accumulate inside of the joint and are having the anti-inflammatory effect there. And then, of course, the other thing too is looking at the chondrocytes. So these are the cells in the joint that produce the cartilage. The activity of these chondrocytes also improved significantly. They had significant better genetic expression, which means they're producing more proteins better. And that means that they're helping to regrow essentially the damage to the joint. And where does that bring us? Well, you might be happy to know that there was a very prestigious review, I should say, conducted by a prestigious rheumatology journal, which is the journal itself called Rheumatology, out of Oxford University and Oxford Press. And it was targeted towards healthcare providers, trying to give them a nice, concise review on which supplements can I recommend to my osteoarthritis patients. So it was an expert medical review. And they did quite an exhaustive search for all compounds that have been reported to be beneficial for improving the health of the joints. And of course, in this list is Pycnogenol. And just to tell you, Pycnogenol was the one that was scored the highest as being the most effective for both pain management as well as joint function, so disability management. Pycnogenol had the best, the highest level of research quality, because it's all done with placebo-controlled trials or controlled clinical trials. And so the research is of high quality, and it had the best effect of any other compound tested. And again, this is coming from review of the research out of Oxford University, published in the Journal of Rheumatology. So yes, it is quite something to be proud of. Pycnogenol is definitely good for joint health. And I've had many personal reports of thanks from many users of Pycnogenol over my career. So let's look at the latest and greatest. And this is new information for Pycnogenol on back pain. Back pain can be both joint related and of course muscle related, and it really relates to your body position throughout the day and your posture. But it's a multifactorial condition, and it needs to be treated multifactorially. And of course, Pycnogenol has multiple functions, which is perfect for such a condition. So this study used a higher dose of Pycnogenol because it was a very short-term study, only 3 weeks. So that they were looking for very fast action. And they compared it to a control group that had twice as many or more than twice as many people as the Pycnogenol group. It's important to note that the subjects in the study were allowed to use pain medication if they needed to. And you can clearly see that the people taking Pycnogenol really didn't need the pain medication, which is very cool to see. So just taking Pycnogenol helped to relieve the inflammation, and only 9% of the subjects in the Pycnogenol group required additional pain medication. Whereas in the control group, 73% relied on pain medication throughout the study. So this is important to remember. 73% of these people were taking pain medication throughout. And even so, those subjects who relied on pain medication, if you compare those taking Pycnogenol, the people taking Pycnogenol, they had their physical performance scores increase faster and more significantly than those people who took pain medication every day. So really showing the improvement of blood flow to the joints and the muscles, fighting the inflammation, the free radical stress, helping to restore healthy function much faster. And also pain scores improved more quickly and more significantly than the people who relied on pain medication alone. And as a result of this, those people who took Pycnogenol, they were able to return to normal activity in only 3 weeks, compared to those people who relied on pain medication use, who it took them on average 4.5 weeks before they could return to standard activity levels. So very cool study here on Pycnogenol for back pain and relieving pain, improving physical function, and reducing the need for medication. But there are other joint and chronic inflammatory conditions that are related to joint health. One in particular is an autoimmune condition called fibromyalgia syndrome. And the statistics in Australia is about 3 to 5% of Australians suffer from this condition. That may not seem like a very big number, but this is a chronic condition that can last a lifetime, and it can develop very early in life. It's very difficult to treat because there are many contributing factors to it, and there is no one proven treatment at this date. So this study was the first of its kind targeting this population, and it had 50 subjects who were diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Half of them took pycnogenol, half of them were in a control group with standard management alone. And they took 150 milligrams of pycnogenol per day. And it was very happy to see that taking pycnogenol significantly reduced the need for pain medication and anti-inflammatory medication, including steroids, in these subjects. Very significant reduction in the need for pain medication. And again, this is the anti-inflammatory action of pycnogenol. And a whole wide variety of symptoms were significantly relieved in these subjects. And this is a very, very debilitating condition at times with very severe fatigue. And you can see very nice relief with taking pycnogenol versus standard care alone. And a broad range of symptoms were investigated, and they found that even cognitive function was improved. Mental cloudiness improved with these subjects. Even symptoms related to interstitial cystitis improved. Migraine headache and regular headache and numbness and tingling of the extremities, this also improved very significantly. And it's really not surprising because it just shows a significant reduction in inflammation and free radical stress in the body, and improving blood flow can help to improve a wide variety of symptoms. And if you look at the subjects who would be considered having high levels of oxidative stress, at the start of the study, both groups, 100% had high levels of free radical stress. But by the end of 4 weeks, only 1 month, 4 weeks of use, there was only 8% in the pycnogenol group who still had what would be considered high oxidative stress. So that's a very powerful free radical fighting there. So yeah, very, very cool study for fibromyalgia, and this is close to my heart because my mother also has fibromyalgia, and so this has been good for her as well. But another important thing for joint health in general, but even if your joints don't hurt, no matter what your age is, it's always important to keep active and keep moving, because this is what keeps us young. This is what keeps your joints young. And they say even if you have osteoarthritis, you will feel better and function better if you can maintain some exercise. And so pycnogenol can go a long way in helping to improve this. And how does it work? It helps to lower muscle pain after exercise. It increases performance in sports. So if you're a high-end athlete, pycnogenol can help to do this by maximizing blood flow and improving muscle performance. And then, of course, it controls oxidative stress, so it helps to improve recovery after exercise. And this has been shown in multiple studies. This was a kind of a cool one, which used the Army physical fitness test as the baseline. And they looked at both men and women, and they saw that the men and women who took pycnogenol doing the same physical activity, the same training, compared to a control group who did not take pycnogenol. Those who did had far better improvement in such a short period of time. 2 mile run times, improved by nearly 2 minutes in both groups. The number of push-ups and the number of sit-ups as well also improved significantly and significantly better in the men and women who took pycnogenol versus the control group. And here's the sit-ups information too. So this was also a significant increase compared to the start of the study. So boosting physical performance. And the other big thing in helping to recover after exercise is that pycnogenol decreases free radical stress. And when you exercise, you breathe harder, you breathe more, so you're sucking in more oxygen and you're creating a massive amount of free radicals. So it's very important when you exercise to take good antioxidant protection. And they even tested a group of highly trained athletes. These were triathletes, not professional, but amateur. Even if you're an amateur athlete, but you're still doing triathlons, you're in very good shape. And they had two groups here, and they did a 100-minute triathlon, which is a swim distance of 750 meters, cycling of 20 kilometers, and a 5K run. And they did this training for 4 weeks, doing one triathlon every 3 days. This is an insane pace. And they were taking Pycnogenol or not. So it was a control group doing the same training or a Pycnogenol group doing the same training. And the group that took Pycnogenol, remember, these are highly trained athletes, their improvement with the addition of Pycnogenol was phenomenal. They improved their time by nearly 11 minutes over the course of this time. So it was a very profound effect of the impact that Pycnogenol can have even in highly trained athletes. And then we're winding down here, but I want to tell you how Pycnogenol helps you to keep the muscles that you've built over this lifetime of keeping your joints active and exercising. Because one of the problems with age is you can start to have muscle wasting. It's a condition they call sarcopenia, and it's important to keep active to prevent the development of this. Now, there was an interesting study that was actually conducted in subjects who were showing the early stages of sarcopenia or muscle wasting. And so these subjects were showing loss of muscle mass, and they had high levels of free radical stress. So both groups were divided into a control group or a Pycnogenol group, and both groups did the same physical exercise to try and combat and fight against sarcopenia or muscle loss. And you could see that the Pycnogenol group performed far better than the group that was simply relying on exercise alone. Their hand grip strength increased, their arm strength increased significantly in a short period of time, in only 2 months. Their walking, their ability to climb stairs, and their general overall fitness level increased significantly in 8 weeks, whereas the control group, doing the same level of exercise, their general fitness level actually decreased. And this is probably due to accumulated fatigue in these subjects, whereas Pycnogenol helps to fight that fatigue and improves overall general wellness. So what is this doing? It's helping these elderly individuals to maintain their free and active lifestyle for a longer period of time. It's improving their health span. That time of wellness in your life is improved significantly. And how is it doing this? Well, it showed that the subjects that were taking Pycnogenol had significantly less protein in their urine. This indicates that there's less protein turnover in the body, or protein loss in the body. And this protein loss can be accelerated with aging due to inflammation and free radical damage. So Pycnogenol fighting inflammation, fighting free radical damage, showed a significant decrease in protein loss and helped these elderly individuals to perform better physically. And there are other studies that support these findings too. There was a study that was published in 2018 in elderly individuals with cognitive dysfunction, and looking at activities of daily life, they found that their interactions with people improved, but they were able to be much more active and enjoy being more active. Their ability to exercise increased significantly. And also a part of this, excuse me, their sleep quality improved quite significantly. And again, this is due to all of these actions of Pycnogenol: fighting inflammation, fighting free radical stress, helps to control dopamine levels and cortisol levels within the body, and helps to produce a better sleep quality too. So a very, very nice study here. And this result has been seen in other studies as well. This was a similar study also conducted in elderly individuals, 60 to 75 years of age, taking Pycnogenol for 1 year. And they found that those subjects who were taking Pycnogenol performed far significantly better than a control group who was not taking Pycnogenol. So specifically looking here at their ability to move around and their ability to react physically to stimuli, their improvement levels were phenomenal, off the charts with taking pycnogenol over a year. And then again, the similar results were seen related to improvement in sleep quality, which is very important, and their exercise ability improved very significantly. So having a broad-ranging impact on improving the health and function of the joints and the health and function of your muscles, and giving you the energy to keep going no matter what your age. So here we are at the end. I know this could be quite overwhelming because, again, I'm trying to summarize over 50 years of research in a short period of time, and it's just not possible. So please remember, as I showed you at the beginning, there are more than 520 peer-reviewed scientific publications, more than 160 controlled clinical studies proving all of these benefits. So we focused on joint health today, but really the key actions of being a super antioxidant, fighting inflammation, and improving blood vessel health and blood flow have broad-ranging effects and health benefits in the joints and the muscles. And then also rebuilding the joints, the damage to the joints, by boosting hyaluronic acid and collagen production. And of course, you can find it all and more at pycnogenol.com. Under the science tab there, you can find all the application brochures, which covers this 50 years more of research on pycnogenol, showing even the mechanisms of action. So please, if you want more information, if you're really curious, or you simply cannot sleep, this is the stuff that will do the trick.